We are going to talk about blockchain analytics. This is a story about TRM Labs. They're a PayPal-backed firm that is in the business of tracking cryptocurrency flows in the name of compliance and enforcement. And it is a good time to be in this business. And I would continue to watch this space for major raises in the near-term future. This, to me, is, again, a story about sort of compliance really stepping into its own. Danny Nelson was right to call out a New York Times article that situates the context of this story very nicely. The Colonial Pipeline hack apparently upended misunderstandings about Bitcoin being fully untraceable. So this is the mainstream moment in which some of these funding rounds are going to be existing. And I think it's quite interesting to see that compliance firms such as TRM Labs and others are really seizing that moment. So that's the conversation. I'm going to throw this to you, Ben. When you see, one of these blockchain sleuths, blockchain sleuthing firms that we write about often, make a fairly notable raise with some fairly notable backers, what's your takeaway?
My take is, when is their contract with the World Bank being announced? Got to get rid of that that untraceability, and this is how you do it. No, I think this plugs really intimately into not just the rise of crypto itself, but also like the ransomware issue. We talked about this before in terms of, in my mind, the way I think about this is that governments can't really do anything about ransomware. And that's a problem. Like, that is a human issue, that is a tech issue, and that's one that companies are going to have to spend billions upon billions of dollars to try and fix and make secure. And even then, it's not going to necessarily be preventable. On the other hand, governments and blockchain analytics solutions can help track the cryptocurrencies that are paid in some ransomware attacks. And so, the raises around these numbers, I think, shows an appetite for this. And if you can't fix ransomware potentially, you can fix tracking cryptocurrencies, other things. We've heard conversations about potentially trying to go after crypto and cracking down on it as a way to prevent against ransomware. And I don't think that's going to happen either. But I do think the appetite for sleuthing on the blockchain is only going to grow, particularly as even we've looked at this, like El Salvador and other governments particularly start to look at it as legal tender. Potentially, there's going to be analytics firms involved there. I doubt we'll know exactly who these firms have contracts with. Usually we get that through trolling through docs. They do not usually comment who they work on with publicly. But the government, and the US government in particular, has a number of different relationships and contracts with blockchain analytics firms already. So this is not a new player on the scene, right? I believe this starts about 5 years old, but the raise shows momentum and is something that is not going to be slowing down, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll add to that and just say, I feel like so many people in crypto are they're so far behind always. You have this mass movement around Bitcoin, everyone piling in and saying, yeah, we're still early and let's popularize this and all of this. It's like, well, actually, maybe that era is over and the next era is going to be privacy coins. You got Tezos, who's experimenting with ZK rollups at the moment. You got all of these different blockchains who are considering zero knowledge proofs and figuring out ways to add them to their chains, because we realize how trackable Bitcoin is, and that's not being solved anytime soon. And all of the solutions on the table right now are just not robust in terms of privacy. So I do think that this is going to become a real issue for people as they start to get, targeted for, donating to the wrong political organizations, or targeted because the wrong charities, maybe governments don't like WikiLeaks or whatnot. As more people, their finances start to get revealed and people realize how trackable things like Bitcoin are, I really do think that the next wave is going to be in privacy coins, people just flocking over there because of things like this. There's so much money in analytics firms right now. It was easy for them to track down the ransomware hackers of the pipeline. That's a great thing, but I do think that people are going to start to realize that their own finances are also public, and a lot of ordinary people just like the right to financial privacy. So we'll have to see what happens there.
Naomi, are you saying that Bitcoin is a thing of the past?
You just put words in my mouth. No, I love Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. But I don't think Bitcoin is for donating to WikiLeaks. I don't think Bitcoin is for everyday purchases. I think it's something that you kind of keep and it's a store of value, and they've made it such that it isn't very good for all these other things. And there are much better things if you want to be using stuff in your everyday life, stuff that does have zero knowledge proofs. Zcash, for example, super, super quick and easy and cheap to send. and there's no trace of where your money goes, I do think that people are going to start to recognize that, and there's going to be more of a flood towards that market. And you've already seen, I mean, we've talked on the show about the flood of privacy coins recently. These aren't going away. It's not like privacy coins were developed, it's a thing of the past and they never got adopted, so let's forget about it. No, you've got these things that are continuing to be adopted, continuing to be developed, new privacy coins being created all the time. I think that it's probably going to be the next wave.
Just to jump in there, Naomi, you're so much more optimistic on privacy coin adoption than most people I know. And I'm wondering why do you think people are going to put themselves in this specter of the government's eye, like the nominal person is going to buy a privacy coin and perhaps get like the hammer ban from the US government for entertaining the idea of even holding a privacy coin? Because most people like are barely even like willing to hold Bitcoin because they think it might not be something that the government wants or whoever doesn't want them to hold it. And a privacy coin is like the next step. It's a magnitude greater. So interesting to hear your take on why you think people would just buy privacy coins. Or maybe Ben.
For sure.
Well.
I think we've seen a huge wave towards privacy products in general. I think that the zeitgeist at the moment is definitely increasing in terms of people's privacy awareness and all kinds of products going out there. I mean, recently had Sidewalk release. There was a big kerfuffle about that. Like, is that going to be an invasion of our privacy? What's Amazon doing? What's the former NSA director on the board of Amazon doing? So I do think people are increasingly aware of privacy. We can thank Edward Snowden a large part for that, but it's only getting more and more pervasive. And as people understand this more, I think that including, more of our lives are on the digital realm. So privacy is going to become more of an important thing for people to consider. But let's change track here.
Yeah, and I'm going to just do a last note there before I dive into my story of the day. Well, I think the privacy coin kind of moniker is starting to get a little bit outdated. I know like privacy coins are starting to prefer the ideas of like anonymity enhancing cryptocurrencies. But to your point, I think that we're seeing less and less space between like Bitcoin and AECs in some ways, and like particularly with like Taproot coming online and like things like CoinJoins maybe potentially starting to be a thing that is going to be possible. I think that it's going to be less of a dividing line around privacy. We're just going to see more privacy enhancements on the things people are using already. Sure. And privacy or AECs could be like a step further than that, but I don't think it's quite as black and white of a choice as it might have been at one point in time. So that's sort of my initial thoughts on that.
Completely agree, Ben.